On October 1, 1946, in Nuremberg, Germany, the courtroom of the International Military Tribunal fell silent as the final sentences were pronounced. 21 high-ranking Nazi officials listened, faces pale and lips tight, to the words that sealed their fate. Among them was Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, one of the most hated men within the German military ranks, not for his brilliance, but for his blind and sickly devotion to Adolf Hitler. His name remained etched in history, not as a strategist or a war hero, but as the clearest symbol of servile obedience and bureaucratic criminality. And in a few weeks, he would meet one of the most desired deaths that a Nazi criminal could have faced. Wilhelm Keitel was born on September 22, 1882, in the small German village of Helmscherode. From a young age, tragedy surrounded him. His mother died when he was just 6 years old, a victim of puerperal fever after giving birth to his younger brother. That absence left him with an emotional void that never healed. His father, a rigid and distant landowner, didn't give him the affection he needed. When Keitel dreamed of inheriting and managing the family lands, his father stripped him of that idea, forcing him to seek a different path. With few options, he joined the Prussian army in 1901, beginning a military career that would lead him, decades later, to ignominy. During the First World War, Keitel served on the Western Front. In 1914, he was hit by shrapnel in Flanders and seriously wounded. However, he survived and was soon transferred to the General Staff, where his organizational skills made him stand out. After the German defeat in 1918 and the humiliation imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, his resentment deepened. He was willing to follow any leader who promised to restore Germany's lost greatness. That leader appeared in 1933, Adolf Hitler. For Hitler, Keitel represented neither tactical brilliance nor strategic vision. He represented something else: absolute obedience. Hitler described him as a faithful dog, incapable of questioning orders. For Keitel, that characterization wasn't an insult, but a perverse compliment. His need for approval was so great that he didn't mind the mockery of his fellow officers, who called him a buffoon, a flatterer, or simply incompetent. The only thing that fulfilled him was feeling useful to the Führer. In 1938, Hitler restructured the German military leadership. He dissolved the Ministry of War and created the High Command of the Armed Forces, known as the OKW. To everyone's surprise, he appointed Keitel as its chief, giving him the rank of Reich Minister. It was a baffling decision. Keitel himself was astonished to receive such responsibility, as he lacked the character and the respect of his peers. But this was precisely Hitler's intention. He needed someone who wouldn't argue, someone willing to sign any document without raising objections. With the outbreak of the Second World War on September 1, 1939, Keitel was not just complicit in the invasion of Poland, but one of its architects. He knew from the start that it was a criminal operation, designed not only to conquer territory, but to exterminate the Polish elites. Just days after the invasion, he himself expanded the death lists that condemned intellectuals, priests, teachers, and doctors to summary execution. Under his signature, tens of thousands of people were murdered. In just 3 months, more than 60,000 Poles, including nobles, clergy, officials, and academics, were systematically massacred. Hitler rewarded him with blood money, 100,000 Reichsmarks, as a prize for his unscrupulous loyalty. Keitel accepted without hesitation, demonstrating that obedience to the Führer was above any notion of morality. Starting in 1941, his pen became a lethal weapon. Order after order, he authorized executions, deportations, and genocide. One of the most infamous was the Commissar Order, which mandated the immediate execution of captured Soviet political commissars. When some military jurists tried to remind him that prisoners were entitled to protection under the Geneva Convention, Keitel coldly dismissed them. The war was not to be regulated by chivalrous codes, he said, but by the destruction of a way of life. His bureaucratic cruelty reached new depths with the decree known as Night and Fog. Under its provisions, thousands of people in occupied countries disappeared without a trace. Arrested at night, tortured, and sent to concentration camps, they were erased from the face of the earth. Their families never received any news. It was a calculated method to instill terror and submission in the civilian population. But the war didn't just destroy nations, it also struck his own family. In July 1941, during the German invasion of the Soviet Union, his younger son, Hans Georg, died in combat. Later, his eldest son was captured by the Russians. Despite these personal tragedies, Keitel did not deviate one step from the criminal path he had followed. When a group of German officers attempted to assassinate Hitler in July 1944, Keitel did not hesitate to protect him. He even helped evacuate the wounded dictator from the conference room, ensuring his survival. Afterwards, he joined the brutal repression that followed. Nearly 5,000 people were executed in retaliation, many of them innocent or accused on flimsy evidence. Keitel participated directly in the army's internal trials, sending officers to be judged by terror courts, and on some occasions, pressuring figures like Erwin Rommel to commit suicide to avoid public humiliation. On May 8, 1945, Keitel signed Germany's unconditional surrender. It was a gesture laden with irony. The man who for years had signed orders of extermination and slavery ended up putting his name on the document that closed the Third Reich. Soon after, he was arrested and transferred to Nuremberg, where he would face international justice. During the Arhasau trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Documents with his signature proved he had authorized illegal executions, mass deportations, and genocide. The defense he presented was pathetic. He claimed he was simply following orders and that his oath of loyalty obliged him to obey. The judges firmly rejected those arguments. It was evident that on numerous occasions he had acted on his own initiative, expanding criminal orders without external pressure. The tribunal described him as a man without a backbone, a bureaucrat willing to sacrifice any principle in exchange for obedience. The verdict was clear: guilty of conspiracy, crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The sentence: death by hanging. Keitel begged to be executed by firing squad, claiming he was a soldier and deserved a military death. The court refused. He would die like a common criminal, without honor or glory. Early in the morning of October 16, 1946, in the gymnasium of the Nuremberg prison, the gallows were erected. The man in charge of the executions was Sergeant John C. Woods, an American hangman known for his deliberate incompetence. Woods did not seek speed or efficiency, but pain. He built the trapdoors too small and calculated the drops so that the neck would not break immediately, thus prolonging the agony. When his turn came, Keitel walked upright to the scaffold. His bearing was that of an officer accustomed to receiving salutes at military parades, not that of a criminal about to die. He climbed the steps firmly, without hesitation. Before the witnesses, he uttered his last words. He asked God for mercy for the German people, and said he was following his fallen sons in sacrifice for the fatherland. Not a single word of regret for the millions of innocents he had condemned. The trapdoor opened. His body fell, violently hitting the narrow edge of the opening. The faulty calculation prevented his neck from breaking immediately. Instead of a quick death, a slow and atrocious asphyxiation began. His legs thrashed in the air, his hands contracted, his face turned red and then purple. For 24 endless minutes, Keitel struggled to breathe as the rope strangled him. The witnesses watched his convulsions, unable to look away from the grotesque spectacle. It was a horrifying end, but perhaps a just one, for a man who had dictated orders that sent millions of people to equally cruel deaths. At 1:44 in the morning, he finally stopped moving. His corpse was removed, cremated in Munich, and his ashes were scattered in the Uisar River, with the intention of erasing any possibility of a monument being raised in his honor. No ceremony, no anthem, no mourning accompanied the end of Wilhelm Keitel. He died as he had lived, reduced to blind obedience, incapable of recognizing his own baseness. He was 64 years old. His death was neither heroic nor dignified. It was that of a bureaucrat of extermination, a man who turned his signature into an instrument of genocide. Instead of receiving the bullets of a military firing squad, as he desired, he ended up writhing on a miscalculated rope, devoured by the same brutality he had legitimized for years. The fate of Wilhelm Keitel was a warning to history. Even those who never wielded a weapon against an innocent can become executioners when they sign without question, when they obey without thinking, when they blindly submit to the will of a tyrant. His end in Nuremberg was more than the execution of a man. It was the sentence against a form of criminal servitude that left millions of victims in its wake. But this is part of our world history. If you liked the information, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see more content like this. Give us a like and comment on what you want our next video to be. See you soon.